welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered HR. I'm Emily from Ally HR Partners.
That makes me Jen Straight from Complete Payroll.
And we are here again at Poplar Estates, where you can host a beautiful wedding or really other events, I guess, Jen, up to 200 people. This venue can host. So check it out online. There'll be links around, as Joe usually puts out. There also is a sister company called Illuminated Landscapes, and they can take care of all of your outside landscaping needs to paint your world with light.
I love that saying.
Yeah.
I love that saying from Phil. He's been in the business over 30 years, and he is an expert at what he does. So check out the website, check out what he can do, and how he can paint your world with light and make all your neighbors super jealous.
Yeah.
I love it.
You thought interesting lighting was just for inside, but
it
turns out it's for outside too.
Yeah. That was popular deception.
All right. Today we are going to kind of a good continuation off of the last subject and last video subject on leave. We're going to talk about an employer's obligation for accommodation. So again, this topic was touched on briefly in a previous episode about the increasing demand of employers to respond to employees' medical needs or mental health needs, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the topic specifically of accommodation and how to navigate that situation when it comes up for your business, because there are a lot of pitfalls that you can fall into.
We don't want you falling into any pitfalls, so let's hop into the...
let's hop in.
Hop in. I always say that.
Dive in.
Let's dive in.
Is more summer oriented.
Let's get started. Let's
with
get
the
this party
breeze we
started.
have here right now. It's really great.
There is a breeze coming, so
this is great.
feels good.
All right, so we're going to start with a brief, I guess, educational history lesson and talk to you a little bit about the laws that protect people or employees that have basically disability conditions. So you've all heard probably of protected classes. In New York State, there are several protected classes, endless protected classes basically, but people with disabilities are protected at both the federal and the state level by the EEOC, but also there's the Americans with Disabilities Act that requires you to accommodate someone with a disability. Then we have the Division of Human Rights in New York State that protects those people that have disabilities. So basically the moral of the story is the number of laws and agencies that are providing either leave or protections here is growing, and so you really need to be on your toes and understand that you have an obligation here and know what those are.
Yep.
So,
I didn't have anything to say
to
that.
add. Yep. All right, we'll keep going then. So we want to, I guess let's talk about then what is a disability, right? Because it can seem kind of nuanced, Jen, but there are definitions of this that these agencies use. Yep. So basically it's a physical or mental condition that substantially limits a major life activity or bodily function. So bodily functions could be immune deficiencies, right? Your ability to protect yourself with your immune system, different digestive deficiencies and things. So conditions that may disrupt your ability to digest in a normal way, like IBS or something like that. Brain function, respiratory function, like asthma. So, things that you would normally think of kind of chronic conditions that may affect someone's day-to-day life. And major life activities are things like breathing, walking, talking, things that normal people would be able to do without much assistance or need for accommodation. So, some other things that you need to know about, though, disabilities can also be protected if someone has a history of a condition. So maybe someone has had and recovered from cancer, but they still have protection as a result of that, because you can't discriminate based on that history, right? You cannot hire someone because of that and you're afraid of it coming back. Perceived disability is a big thing. So if you recognize something in someone and you perceive it as being disability related and treat them differently, that is also protected, even though it's not maybe a diagnosable disability. So you want to be really careful on how you address and respond to these things, even if it's something you don't know about but think you might know about.
I think a good example or a good question about that is pregnancy. Yeah. If you're pregnant, being interviewed, that can be very, and I think it kind of goes both ways, where you as the employer don't feel like it was a good fit, pregnant or not, and they feel like it's discrimination. And, it's a very fine line of, again, it's how it's perceived.
Sure.
So and I think that's what they consider like a disability, is being pregnant.
Yep, would be a medical condition. It affects, your regular day-to-day life, body functions.
Does it?
Yes, yes.
It does.
So that is protected under disability protections, but also pregnancy does have its own specific acts that protect it now as well. Right. But on that note, Jen, I'm glad you brought that up, because another common thing that I think is entering the workplace more that is often covered by disability protection is people struggling with addiction issues. So just a really quick tip on that. If an employee is struggling with addiction and is currently getting treatment, Jen, they're enrolled in some sort of program, whether it's outpatient or not, they are protected during that time under this law. If they are not enrolled and they're currently using, they are not protected. So it's a really good tip there. Of course, you should always contact a lawyer probably in situations where you're considering taking action and stuff like that, but good rule of thumb there. So we know what disability is now. We know what some of the laws are that protect people. So what are your obligations as an employer if you encounter someone with a medical condition in the workplace, and what protections exist? And the first is to maybe offer some sort of leave, which we talked about that in the last episode, so make sure you check that out. There are different leaves, FMLA leave and disability leave in particular, that protect an employee for their own medical condition, and usually their disability qualifying conditions. So you may be required to provide a leave of absence. So make sure that you understand that and go back and check out the episode. Also protections from discrimination, retaliation, or harassment because of the disability. We're not going to go deep into that. We do mention it a bit in the previous episode, but just touch on that. But today we're talking about this requirement to accommodate or make a modification to someone's job or their working conditions or the working environment as a result of their disability. And you do always have an obligation as an employer to make an accommodation or a modification, as long as it doesn't result in an undue hardship on you as an employer, which is a pretty high bar to meet, Jen, which most people don't realize.
That's the thing, is we're talking about, conditions and things that they may need like extra breaks, or they have to leave at a certain time to go to the doctor every other day or something like that. Where does that line come when it's creating a hardship on you because they're gone? Can they be flexible with their time?
Yeah. Well, the standard is really, does it involve or require a significant expense or difficulty on the part of the employer? And of course, significant is kind of a subjective term, but as you can imagine, the ruling is probably going to be on the side of the employee in that situation. So you're right, Jen, like a modified schedule that requires or allows for more breaks. If someone has IBS or something like that, right? That is a disability. They may need more breaks. But a lot of common ones that are more nuanced is like special lighting in their work area, or screen protectors that reduce the light coming in, or a modified chair to sit in, and things like that. These are all very simple things. They cost very little money or hardship by the employer, and you really should provide that. But the important thing, John, is to understand, one, that you do not need to reduce the requirement for the employee to perform the essential duties of the job in making the accommodation. So if the job requires them to have a certain output or get a certain job done or a certain task done for the business, an accommodation should not compromise the requirement for the employee to need to do that. So of course, changing someone's lighting in the area doesn't do that, right? It allows them to not maybe have the migraine so that they can focus to do the work, but you don't need to reduce those job requirements.
What are the legal obligations for having like documentation of that? Do you need to have, like, somebody comes in and says, I have chronic headaches or migraine. Can you require to have some sort of documentation from doctors, or is this like what the employee says and things can change as you have it, or like what are the rules for that? So
I'm glad that you mentioned that. So this process of going about requesting an accommodation, it should be a very, very formal process that an employee requests this, and you should contact HR or whoever wears the HR hat in your organization to go about filling out formal paperwork, because you do want to have the employee prove that they do have some condition or a condition that is disability qualifying, and also have a doctor indicate what the actual restrictions or needs are so that you can actually meet those and not just kind of go off an arbitrary request from the employee, because as you can imagine, not to be cynical, but that opens up a can of worms.
Sure.
You give one employee a fancy chair to sit in because they have a back condition, and now everybody wants the fancy, more comfortable chair.
Right.
And if you didn't make the one person substantiate that, then you can't certainly make everyone else. So it is an interactive process that you should go through as defined by the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, but doing it formally with HR and documentation from a doctor is really, really important to protect yourself. Yeah.
And again, you always want to default to the benefit of the employee until it's resolved, right? They can't get an appointment with a doctor or a certain note in 6 weeks or something.
Yeah.
Try to do what you can for the employee, because again, the employee's guilty till proven innocent about anything. So you do kind of want to make those accommodations, but you do want to have a standard in your handbook.
Yeah.
And you want to have this in your handbook. If you have a disability or if you need special accommodations, here is the procedure to fill out the form and formally request that, because I think having that protection is exactly that. It's having that protection. So if there are any issues that come up and they claim that you weren't providing this, well, here's what you signed off on the handbook when you were hired. Here's what you had to do, and it was never brought to my attention. Because again, when you have managers in there and they're the face of the company, and you're not on the day-to-day interacting with the employees, you may not know. So if they casually tell a manager something, you almost don't want that. You want them to send it to the HR. And if you're watching this video, 95% of these people are wearing the HR hat. I'm guessing.
Yeah,
you
and
want to have that.
That's one of our biggest takeaways here, as it is in a lot of videos, Jen, is train your managers on this stuff and train them to know when someone is alluding to having a medical condition or perhaps a disability. Once they've even made the manager aware of the situation, if they even mention like, you know what, I'm sorry I'm late today, I had a hard time getting out of bed because I've really been struggling with depression lately, you've now been potentially notified of a disability, and you may need to then have the obligation to accommodate that, right? So that's when the manager needs to understand these are the triggers, these are the flags when you should really escalate it, so we can go about addressing it in a formal way that protects us. And then if we need to make an accommodation, we understand what that is, we have documentation, this is a bona fide basically condition, and then we will go about adjusting their schedule. But you don't want managers to inadvertently say, okay, great, well, we'll move your starting schedule back by 30 minutes, and now you've accommodated without formally accommodating, and it really puts you in a bad situation.
Well, that's a great point of having an informal discussion. The employee's not even formally asking for any special accommodations, but they're saying, I couldn't get out of bed or something like that. You have to, as wearing the HR hat, or the managers have to know those words, those trigger words and those things to, always overanalyze it and bring it to the owners or whoever's wearing that final HR's hat attention, so then they can take it from there. Because then they can reach out to the employee, document it. If the employee says, no, I don't need any special accommodation, it's documented, and they can never go back and say, I never was given that even opportunity.
Yep. So really the takeaways here are, know what it is you need to do, know what a disability is, know what your obligations are, arm yourself with that knowledge, pay attention and be on alert. So whether it's you or your managers, you need to understand, when someone does tell you something, what you may be obligated to do, and then take the required steps to really investigate it and respond appropriately. And then respond appropriately. So don't inadvertently accommodate without formally requiring paperwork. Don't discipline someone for something that could be protected under ADA without taking that investigative action. Certainly don't retaliate, as we kind of talked about in the last leave episode. Again, just be really thorough in your response. And then, of course, as always, we take it back to the HR person, but escalate is needed to a professional, either internally in your organization if you have a really, well-educated HR person, high-level HR person. If not, that's what someone like Ally HR Partners exists for. You can call Jen too, and then she'll call me, and then I'll tell her, and she'll tell you.
And then we'll have a conversation, and then we'll meet, and then That's why we work as a team. I mean, there's so many things that are involved with leaves and payroll and time, the timekeeping system that are with HR. And HR is such a broad term, and I hate saying HR because it's such a broad term.
A swear word.
Right. It's like HR, and everyone cringes immediately. It's such a broad term, but that's why we work so hand in hand. And it's a good time to even talk about some transitions that we have gone through of, someone like Emily has helped transition clients that we've worked on together from their current company to complete payroll. And she's getting the intricacies of all of these things we're talking about, making sure they're in your handbook, and then making sure it's set up on the payroll and timekeeping side to have all of these things, tracked, and that's why it intertwines well, to kind of have us both on your side.
Absolutely, yeah. The systems can help you with automating a lot of this stuff, and even when it comes to this disability stuff, tracking days off or leave usage and things like that as well. So
absolutely,
yeah. So we hope this was helpful. Again, we'll follow up to this episode with some stuff, some written pieces on this as well. And you can always check out more content on my site on this or many topics. But certainly reach out if you have any questions. This is a pretty nuanced and gray area that is becoming a bigger issue for all clients and employees and employers. So make sure you reach out with questions.
Yeah, sounds good. And if you would like to host us at our next video shoot, we would love to be there. Yes. They have been very gracious hosts. We have snacks off camera you can't see, and beverages here at Poplar Estates and Luminate Landscapes in East Aurora. But please email us at unfilteredhr@completepayroll.com for content suggestions. If you would like to host us, comments, anything, questions about the topic that we just talked about, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, so we'll see you soon. Enjoy the rest of the summer. That's maybe not till the end.
Yeah, well, we'll probably have, we got to do like a beach or a boat or something. If you have like a nice little view
that would be amazing.
If you have a view at your restaurant, anything that is super summery, let us know. We'd love to it's only July 11th, so we need some more summer stuff.
True. Yeah.
Some more fun summer stuff.
All right.
Cheers. And hey, enjoy the weather.
See you soon.
Go Bills.
I have to say, always.